Happy Friday and welcome to BrainScratch. I'm your host, John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Today, we're doing an update episode on the missing soldiers from Fort Hood, a significant development in the case of unidentified person Princess Blue, and has the Fenn treasure finally been found? I've recently been in contact with Kim, the mother of missing Fort Hood soldier Gregory Morales Waddell. She was very thankful for the Searchlight episode. If you haven't watched the Missing from Fort Hood Searchlight, please take a look at it right after today's video. I'll have a link in the description box below, and both of the cases in that video really need your help. Kim raised some concerns with me about the investigation and told me that she recently found out that Gregory's car, the Kia Rio that he had recently bought, has been in the Army's Criminal Investigation Command, or CID's, possession since January. And she only found out about that in May. She has no details on how or where it was located or what condition it's in. She only knows it's with the forensics team. Personally, for a missing persons investigation like this, I would think you'd want to share where the vehicle was found at least, so you could ask the public in that particular area for information, but that doesn't seem to be how they're operating in this case for some reason. The Army has increased the reward for Gregory to $25,000. Kim told KCEN TV, "What it would tell me is that they also suspect something has happened at this point, beyond him just going AWOL." If you don't remember the episode, he was within days of being discharged from the service, so the AWOL explanation really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A petition has also been started asking to change Army protocol so that missing persons are not assumed to be AWOL, and those missing persons investigations should begin immediately. I've signed it, and you can find a link in the description box below if you would like to join me in doing so. It literally only takes a few seconds. The Army has been putting out a strong message in several articles that they see no connection between the two disappearances, and CID is saying that they have no evidence that Vanessa Guillen was sexually assaulted, responding to information that's been kicking around on social media, and, according to the BBC, allegations from her own family that she was being abused by someone of higher rank in her unit. These allegations have been heard by Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who is now trying to help keep tabs on the case and has requested a congressional inquiry with the Department of Defense. Chris Gray, spokesman for Army CID, stated, "We are completely committed to finding Vanessa and aggressively going after every single piece of credible information and every lead in this investigation. We will not stop until we find Vanessa." Texas EquiSearch is going to Fort Hood this week to help with the search. Tim Miller from EquiSearch told ABC 13 that he does suspect foul play in Vanessa's case. Vanessa's reward is currently $50,000 between what's been offered by the Army and a contribution from the League of United Latin Citizens of America. Army CID claims that they have interviewed over 150 people in regards to her case. Several rallies have been held outside Fort Hood and in Houston, and even celebrity Selma Hayek has pledged to feature Vanessa's photo every day on her social media until Vanessa has been found. If you have any information on either case, please use the contact info in the description box below. On to our next update. I want to give Shelby a big thank you for being the first to let me know about a very important development in the case of Princess Blue. We have one big question answered, and now a new hunt for the truth begins. We originally covered that case in December of 2019. I'll have a link below if you're unfamiliar with it, but it's an unidentified persons case with some unique jewelry that was left behind, which gave this Jane Doe the name Princess Blue. She was found at the end of a road jutting off Highway 288 near Manvel, Texas. A medical examination revealed 2 fractured ribs and came to a conclusion that foul play was suspected. Initial conclusions that she was Hispanic were changed when the case was reinvestigated in 2006. Newer DNA technology pointed towards her being white with some African DNA recently entering her family, likely from a parent or grandparent. In November of 2019, Princess Blue's bones were sent to a lab in Austin, Texas for additional DNA testing. According to a post on Facebook from June 16th on a page set up for missing person Julia Gwenn Davis, she has been identified as Princess Blue. The details in the post are all known details about Princess Blue, but as of Wednesday morning, I couldn't find any info to actually confirm that the link between the cases had happened. No press releases, no articles. I contacted Detective Sergeant Meschel, who is working the Princess Blue case, and this is what he told me. I've been working on this case some time and did receive confirmation through DNA analysis that confirmed Julie is Princess Blue. We have not released a lot of information just yet. My first priority was to get her identified. Now that that has been done, now I need to know what happened. I'd like to thank Detective Sergeant Meschel for the confirmation, but to his point, what exactly did happen to Julie? According to the Charlie Project, Julie Gwenn Davis was born on October 19, 1968, and was last seen in New Orleans, Louisiana on July 12, 1985 at the age of 16. This is one of the only known pictures of her from a few years before she disappeared. A Caucasian female with wavy blonde hair, blue eyes, and a tattoo of the Libra zodiac on her arm, Julie stood between 4 foot 11 inches tall and 5 feet tall, and weighed around 125 pounds. She also had a blood disorder and recently moved to New Orleans from Orange, Texas. She disappeared and was never heard from again. Texas authorities were investigating her case. My first question is, could she have possibly run away to go back to the town that she recently left? New Orleans is about 240 miles away from Orange, Texas. Princess Blue was found in a town called Manvel, directly south of Houston, that is 130 miles farther away from New Orleans. Our 3 points could certainly be showing her intent to travel west, away from her new home. I'm also curious if any information at the time confirmed that she headed back to Texas, because law enforcement there would wind up leading the investigation into her missing persons case, the Orange, Texas Police Department. And typically it would be the department of her current home or where she went missing from. There's also another interesting aspect to all this. According to the NamUs records, Julie went missing in 1985. Princess Blue was discovered in 1990, and they estimated that her remains were there for only 6 months to a year. It's quite possible that Julie left and was living for several more years before meeting her demise. Remember, Princess Blue's case is presumed to be a homicide. Initially, they had Princess Blue's age listed as between 15 and 19 years old. However, when they did a new analysis, they bumped the age up to as old as 21. As I looked more into Julie, I saw some posts that contained information from family members. One of them stated they last saw her at the age of 19. Now, she wouldn't have been 19 until October of 1987. As of when I'm recording this, only one official news release has happened. According to family information reported by Courtney Fisher at ABC 13, Julie went missing in the late 80s at the age of 18. Now, I know the 80s is a long stretch back for many of our memories, but how can we have such conflicting info about something as traumatic as a missing family member? I'm not really sure. I know NamUs usually verifies their information directly with law enforcement, and I know they had her record linked to the Orange, Texas Police Department. Would they really have the year of her disappearance incorrect and some made-up date for the last time she was seen, which was listed as July 12, 1985? Is it possible a missing persons report was filed for her at the age of 16, and then the family reconnected with her for some time and then lost connection again? Megan at the Charlie Project also commented about the date discrepancy on a blog post. She said, they only have the one not very good quality and out-of-date photo of her, and from the Facebook page, her family apparently wasn't really clear on when they'd last heard from her. They mentioned getting a letter from her around 1985 or 1986. I'm not sure where Names's date of disappearance comes from. Megan then continues with details that didn't wind up in the Charlie Project profile page. Quote, "She was just 16 years old and already out on her own, almost 4 hours from her hometown. I know things were a bit different back in the 80s, but that's still pretty unusual. I wonder if she was in foster care." Despite the recent news coverage on this case, these questions are still unanswered. Another mystery in all this is that class ring that gave her the nickname Princess Blue. The Facebook post is asking for anyone with info on that ring to contact authorities, and someone identifying herself as Julie's sister is saying they recognize the rest of the jewelry, but not the class ring. Did it wind up in this trash heap on the side of a highway coincidentally and was accidentally collected with her remains? Maybe not. Remember, it was a class ring from Robert E. Lee High School for the class of 1975. If Julie went missing at the age of 16 in 1985, is it possible she could have been dating someone that was in the class of 1975? If you recall my first episode on this, the records from the manufacturer of the rings were lost over the years. In ABC 13's latest story on this, they asked about the ring and if Julie had any possible connection to Houston or that particular high school. Her brother Danny stated, "I just found out last night from my sister Shelley that Shelley met Julie's husband at one point years back, and she said he was from Houston." He also stated he believed she got married at the age of 18. However, if that's true, where's the marriage certificate that would lead us right to her husband's name? While I did find a birth record for Julie, I couldn't find any marriage record for her. If any of you brain scratchers are genealogy sleuthers out there, please give it a shot and let me know if you find anything. If their sister met Julie's husband, though, does she remember any part of his name or any details that could help authorities track him down? Did Julie possibly use an alias when they got married, or did they not officially file their marriage? This seems like a very important lead, and I'm sure we have Detective Sergeant Meschel following up on that. I checked on Names when both records were still active and in unsolved status. They've since been deactivated. The details are a decent match, though the composite sketches don't seem strong at all. But of course, they were dealing with skeletal remains and an initial assumption that she may have been Hispanic. Unfortunately, they also assumed she would have dark hair. The age range is close, height pretty much spot on. In all, I'm sort of surprised that these records weren't matched up before. I could see that these records had never been tested against each other according to the exclusion list on each. More information that came out in the recent report by ABC 13 states that in December of 2019, a Texas Ranger requested DNA from a few of Julie's siblings, including her brother Danny, to test them against a different potential match. It was entered into a state database, and the hit came back that they matched Princess Blue. Quote, "I wouldn't have believed it's her if that detective didn't tell me the DNA matched," Danny told ABC 13. He had no previous knowledge of Princess Blue at all. Now, I also want to mention I did have a viewer send in a Reddit thread that was mentioning my coverage of the Princess Blue case, and I just want to be clear that I don't think that coverage had any direct impact or bearing on her identity being figured out, outside of the coincidence that it was released in the same month that the Texas Ranger would inquire with the family. I am happy that we all know that part of the story. We now have the update and know who Julie is. Now we need to keep raising awareness and exposure and digging in so we can figure out what happened to Julie. As her brother stated, "I don't think she died naturally. No one is going to walk down a dead-end road, jump over a guardrail, and drop dead. I want to work to find out who took my sister's life. I want them to pay for their crime." And of course, we know the initial autopsy found those rib fractures and assumed there was much more to this story. I believe someone out there knows. And while they may have been comfortable for years due to inaccurate composite sketches, that safety is now gone. And investigators have taken a giant step forward on cracking this case. Her brother says, "I want people to know she had a face. She has a name, and now I'm fixing to give it back to her." Unfortunately, their parents are no longer alive, and never knew what happened to Julie. There is a GoFundMe that's been started for Julie's memorial service. On behalf of my amazing supporters, we've already made a donation. There's also a link in the description box below if you'd like to make an additional donation or simply share the link with your friends and family. I'll be sure to keep an eye on developments with this case and keep you updated. On to our final update today. For any of you treasure hunters out there looking for Forrest Fenn's box of gold and antiques, according to the man himself, it's time to hang up your hiking boots. A statement from Forrest was posted to OldSantaFeTradingCo.com. Quote, "It was under a canopy of stars in the lush forested vegetation of the Rocky Mountains and had not moved from the spot where I hid it more than 10 years ago. I do not know the person who found it, but the poem in my book led him to the precise spot." Anyone that's seen my previous coverage on this case knows I thought this whole game was a bit irresponsible, taking the lives of at least 5 people. Some reports are saying it's actually more like 7, and requiring a helicopter emergency rescue for one treasure hunter who decided to rappel down into Yellowstone Canyon, and several snowmobile rescues for other hunters. One of those snowmobile searching hunters would wind up dead as well. The search for treasure was constantly taxing the services of different rescue teams. I could never figure out Forrest's intent of driving people into treacherous situations, all in the name of trying to get them to spend more time outdoors and off the couch, with promises of wealth and material possessions. Fenn would later clarify that the treasure wasn't in a dangerous location, but the accidents and deaths continued to occur. One woman needed rescue help 3 different times. Other games of this nature, like the one started by the book called The Secret, A Treasure Hunt back in the 80s, have had no known fatalities and have been inspiring searchers to learn more about the U.S. and the different cultures that helped start our country for decades. If you're interested, only 3 of the 12 treasures from The Secret have been found, and there are several very entertaining episodes of Expedition Unknown covering that story. But back to Fenn. As usual, controversy continues to swirl around this story. When he initially announced the search was over, he wouldn't say who found it or where. As you can imagine, with a group of thousands of fanatics trying to understand his poem and other clues, not giving them the answer is raising some very strong suspicion. And what about the person who found it? According to the Santa Fe New Mexican News, Fenn stated, quote, "The guy who found it does not want his name mentioned. He's from back east." You know the guy from back east, right? Fenn added that it was confirmed from a photograph the man sent to him, but we initially didn't get to see that photograph either. So if the man has the treasure, why not release the location so the other hunters can have the simple satisfaction of the answer to the poem? According to OutsideOnline.com, Fenn originally promised more details, but now is changing his tune and is saying the treasure's location is personal and confidential. One possible reason for this could be if the treasure wound up on private property, which in some states would make the treasure the property of the landowner. Why would Fenn have enticed thousands to invade someone's private property? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would figure it was probably on public land, but as I've stated before, this thing never seemed too well thought out. Even if it was in a national park, apparently treasure hunters may need permits to keep what they find. There's also huge tax implications. Is Fenn helping the winner skirt tax responsibilities that could amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars by not announcing their name? Taxes that would be due in this tax year? Does the man who found Fenn's treasure have a good reason to stay unknown? Perhaps. A real estate attorney from Chicago is now claiming she had solved the puzzle, but her computer was hacked. She's even filing an injunction in federal district court to try to stop the sale of any items from the chest. Quote, "He stole my solve. He followed and cheated me to get the chest," claims Barbara Anderson, who says she was being cyber-stalked and had received threatening text messages. There are other lawsuit attempts going on, one against Fenn directly. A man claims that fraudulent statements and misleading clues deprived him of finding the treasure, and he wants $1.5 million for his troubles. The case has had a few stumbling blocks, being thrown out once already, but the man is currently petitioning the court to reopen it. That's not all. Another lawsuit against Fenn might actually be the reason why the treasure's discovery was announced. Brian Erskine claims that Fenn was just served with his lawsuit, and then, all of a sudden, this announcement about the game being over came out. Linda Bilyeu, wife of Randy Bilyeu, whose story we covered on Case Cracked back in 2016 and was my introduction to the Fenn treasure, told Westword.com, "I believe he never hid the treasure. Fenn needed more attention, which is why he said the treasure has been found with no proof." However, we now have pictures, and of course, those pictures bring many more questions. Here's a photo of the chest before it was left out for someone to find. And at dollneitzel.com, we can see the chest on the ground somewhere with the caption, "Taken not long after it was discovered." It's obviously not a photo of the hole it was in, not a photo of any identifying feature like a tree or rock that would help someone locate it, no real information to verify the location at all, just the item. The only thing I can assume from this photo is that the box appears to have been buried. There is sand all over the edges where it was once closed, and the key looks like it was exposed to outdoor elements for many years. The box seems to have kept most moisture out except for the rust showing up on that one coin. I'm curious why some of the items were in Ziplocs. It appears that would mean he knew the box wasn't exactly weatherproofed, but for some reason he didn't wrap everything. In the following photos, we have Fenn reviewing all the items, trying on a bracelet he says was wet when found, and he also said a few years ago that he actually wanted that bracelet back. Fenn also makes a statement about the chest being darker than it was 10 years ago when I left it on the ground and walked away. Now, I don't know all the lore around the treasure, but I'm seeing a bit of a conflict here. He says he left it on the ground and walked away. But in that first photo, we have enough sand on the front and side edges of the inside of the box lid for me to assume that it was buried, and I can see several references in other articles about the treasure that they're noting it was buried as well. I'm also not sure what would have made the box darker if it was exposed to sunlight and the elements, but maybe that's just his perception, and maybe he just goofed up his statement about leaving it on the ground. Fans of this channel know I screw up what I'm saying all the time. There's also a comment by Fenn with the photos. "The finder wants me to remain silent, and I always said the finder gets to make those two calls, who and where." I understand them wanting to protect their identity, but the location really makes no sense to me. If he's really trying to get people to spend more time outdoors, announcing the location would only turn that spot into a destination for tens of thousands of Fenn treasure hunters to go and see how close they got to finding it for themselves, on top of allowing them to verify that his poem wasn't a total fabrication. Wasn't his intent this whole time to get more people off the couch? Or was this always more about selling books? It doesn't seem like he needed the money. Was it just a matter of getting attention and fame before passing on? What do you think? Was this chest possibly buried in Forrest Fenn's backyard this whole time, or has it really been found under a canopy of stars? Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Fenn was asked how he felt by the Santa Fe New Mexican News. Quote, "I don't know. I feel halfway kind of glad, halfway kind of sad because the chase is over." I think the chase is just beginning, at least in the courtrooms. But one group can breathe a huge sigh of relief. The rescue organizations that will have several less treasure hunter-related emergencies to deal with every year. As usual, all my sources for all the stories we covered today are in the description box below if you want to dig in for yourselves. I also need to give a very big thank you to PayPal supporters Hillary Green, Brandy Fry, Jennifer Dixon, Angela Welch Sola, and a special thank you to Tracy Knapp. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit www.lordenarts.com. There you can sign up for PayPal, sign up for Patreon, or buy merchandise. All of it helps keep me here doing what I love doing, digging into these mysteries with you. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Be safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again on Monday with a brand new episode of Case Cracked right here on the Lord and Arch channel.